CGI muscle-ups. The kettlebell clanged at Jason Statham's feet, sending sand flying. Blake, shirtless, jacked, and loud, stood smirking in the middle of the Santa Monica Beach gym, arms raised as his crew hooped behind him. Prove it, Hollywood, or walk. Jason, in a faded gray tank, was just stretching under the bar moments ago. He looked up slowly, brushing sand off his leg. Just warming. Blake stepped closer, mocking his form, shouting, "Fake fighter!" Phones started filming. Beachgoers froze, some whispering, others just staring. Jason's eyes sharpened. Blake nudged his shoulder, jeering, "Movie edits don't count here." Jason rose calmly, set his hands on the bar. "Strength circuit. Let's go." Blake laughed. "You're on." As the beach crowd held its breath. Before we proceed, like and subscribe to catch Jason Statham's epic face-off with cocky Jim Bro, and comment where you're watching from today. Santa Monica Beach throbbed with energy under the late afternoon sun. Bikes zipped down the boardwalk, boom boxes pumped summer beats, and the ocean crashed in the distance. The outdoor gym clanged with the rhythm of metal on metal, barbells hitting rubber mats, chains rattling with every muscle-up, jump, and grunt. Sweat mixed with sea air. TikTokers danced near the benches, hoping for that perfect golden hour clip. Jason Statham moved quietly in the corner. Gray tank top, black joggers, lean, carved physique. His movements were slow, deliberate, deep stretches, breath-controlled, eyes sharp beneath his hood. He did not come here for attention. Just a low-key routine, far from the cameras. But even in silence, his presence had gravity. A calm lion in a den of yapping dogs. Blake, shirtless, tanned, veins popping, strutted between sets like he owned the sand. Rejected recently by a supplement brand that chose Jason for a campaign, he had not forgotten. His buddies, Kyle and Ray, snickered beside him, throwing glances Jason's way, hoping for something to spark. They were not training. They were circling. Nearby, a young lifeguard fumbled through kettlebell swings, struggling to keep rhythm. His coach scrolled Instagram. A disabled vet sat close, one arm resting on a walker, nodding respectfully toward Jason. The old man wore a safe brand cap, Jason's first indie stunt film. Recognition in his eyes. And then it happened. A phone glinted in the sun, raised mid-scroll. The moment caught. The tension thickened like sea fog. A showdown was brewing, and every phone lens knew it. The weights clanged once more, then silence dropped like a hammer. Fake fighter. Blake's voice sliced through the open air. Heads turned instantly. His hand slapped the pull-up bar Jason had just used, rattling it with a loud metallic clank. CGI muscle-ups, right? That's how you got your movies. Jason stood upright, unfazed. He rolled his neck slowly, the sun catching the edge of his jaw. "Just warming up," he said evenly. His voice was low, grounded. It did not rise to match Blake's volume, but it carried farther. Like gravel over stone. His posture stayed relaxed, arms by his sides. The gym area tensed. Blake's crew circled behind him, feeding the moment. Hollywood's here to film, not lift. Kyle laughed, pulling out his phone. Ray snorted beside him, aiming the camera with glee. "Let's see some of that editing magic." Blake stepped closer. "Come on, man. You train for trailers. I train for reps." He threw a hand toward Jason's form, mocking the way he moved during warm-up drills. "That ain't real power. You know it. Everyone here knows it." Jason did not blink. He looked at Blake once, then toward the crowd forming near the railings. Then Blake crossed the line. He stepped into Jason's space, closer than anyone should. "You want respect?" Blake asked, jaw tight, voice venomous. "Earn it." With a sudden shove, Blake rammed his palm into Jason's shoulder. Jason stumbled back a step. His foot hit the mat, steadying just before his heel would have slipped off. He stood tall again, but his eyes, those sharp blue eyes, changed. No more warmth. No more silence. Jason rolled his shoulder once, like resetting a gear. Then he locked his eyes on Blake. Cold. Focused. You sure you're ready for what you just asked for? Blake chuckled, cocky, still unaware that the air had already shifted. And around them, the crowd started whispering. Did he just shove Statham? Man's crazy. He's done. Tension coiled like a spring, waiting to snap. Blake stepped back with a smug grin, arms spread wide like he just won something. All right then, let's settle it, he shouted loud enough for the entire beach gym area to hear. Muscle-ups, kettlebells, jump box, sprint to the rail and back. That's our circuit. One shot. Let's see if Hollywood can hang. Phones rose like a wave. Dozens of beachgoers now lined the rail, their cameras aimed squarely at Jason and Blake. Someone muttered, "It's gonna go viral," while another whispered, "No way Statham says yes." Jason didn't respond right away. He simply turned his head and scanned the setup: pull-up bar, kettlebell rack, jump platform, and the stretch to the rail and back. His expression was unreadable. Focused. But beneath that cool exterior, something else churned, controlled intensity. The beach quieted as if nature itself was leaning in. Jason rolled his shoulders, adjusted his tank slightly, and gave a single nod. "Set it up," he said, voice crisp. That was all he needed to say. It cut through the tension like a blade. The crowd murmured, a mix of surprise and anticipation. A young trainer near the fence whispered, "He's actually doing it." Blake's crew hooped and hollered, pounding Blake's back like he already won. "Show this actor what real training looks like," Kyle yelled, already pulling up TikTok live. "Let's go, Blake." Jason walked to the pull-up bar slowly, purposefully. His movements were minimal, yet commanding, no showboating, just presence. He stood below the bar and glanced sideways, catching a faint nod from a man seated quietly nearby, a disabled veteran in a folded beach chair. The man had been watching Jason from the beginning. He wore a cap with the word "safe" stitched on it. That single nod from the vet landed harder than any insult Blake had thrown. Jason nodded back, subtle but sure. Now it was on. Jason's eyes hardened. His hands chalked without hurry. Muscles coiled. Grit engaged. The crowd's energy flipped. What began as amusement had shifted into something far more electric. "He's not backing down," someone muttered. "Wait. He's actually serious," another added. A surfer shouted from the sidelines, "He's not scared." And just like that, the energy cracked. Blake's smugness faltered for a half-second. And in that moment, right before it started, Jason stared Blake down and said coolly, "Let's see what happens when the cameras can't cut." Blake clapped his hands and jogged in place, amping himself up, radiating arrogance. "You ready, movie man?" he barked. Jason stood calmly at the line, wiping chalk off his fingers onto his gray tank. He rolled his neck once and nodded. "Louder now," Blake yelled. "On my mark." The crowd held its breath. 3, 2, 1, go. Blake exploded forward, charging at the pull-up bar with the fury of a man chasing ego. He jumped, swung, and cranked out muscle-ups with aggressive speed. But his form was wild, knees kicking, chest heaving. It was strength, yes, but laced with sloppiness. Jason's start was quieter. He gripped the bar and pulled, clean, controlled, and powerful. Each rep flowed into the next, no wasted motion. While Blake jerked his body for momentum, Jason rose like a piston, smooth and efficient. By the 8th rep, Blake's form began to break. Sweat already streaked his forehead. He dropped from the bar with a grunt and sprinted toward the kettlebells. Jason followed seconds later, silent, composed. At the kettlebell station, Blake went too heavy. He ripped the bells from the ground, gritted his teeth, and pumped out reps with sheer force. But his breath was off. His back arched. One bell almost tipped sideways. Jason reached the station, selected a slightly lighter pair, and moved like a machine, precise deadlifts into high pulls. He did not flex. He did not grunt. He just moved, and the crowd noticed. "He's clean," someone whispered. Blake finished first, again ahead, but barely. He stumbled to the jump box, legs beginning to slow. He tried to explode upward. His first jump landed awkwardly. His second barely cleared. Jason reached the box. With no hype, no pause, he jumped, landed, reset, jumped again. Each landing solid. Controlled. By the final rep, Blake missed. He clipped the edge, stumbled, nearly fell. Gasps rippled. Jason didn't miss a beat. He finished the last jump and shot forward toward the sprint zone. Now the final leg, a 60-yard burst down to the beach railing and back. Blake's arms pumped. He gasped for breath, body running on fumes. But Jason surged, eating ground fast, his pace building like a rolling wave. His breathing was calm. His posture tight. They reached the rail nearly together, but Jason touched first. And then on the return sprint, Jason overtook him completely. Blake wheezed. His legs faltered. And right there, in front of the cameras, the beach crowd, the phones, he gave out. His stride collapsed into a jog, then a stumble. Jason didn't slow. He crossed the finish line smooth, upright, barely winded. Silence. Then cheering. Jason walked back toward the pull-up bar as the crowd erupted. He grabbed a water bottle off the sand, twisted it open, took one sip, then casually tossed it into the recycle bin nearby. Blake dropped to his knees, panting, dripping in sweat, chest heaving like he'd been in a fight. His crew stood stunned, silent, phones lowered. Jason turned, nodded once to the disabled vet by the fence. The man smiled wide and saluted with 2 fingers. That was when a voice rang out. "That's Statham." Heads turned. Murmurs rippled. Wait, Jason Statham? That was him. A few people ran over, phones now frantically recording. The safe cap veteran raised his voice again. He doesn't talk tough. He ends it. The beach buzzed. Within moments, the clip was on TikTok. 2 million views. Caption: Jim Bro challenges Jason Statham, learns what real strength looks like. Jason Statham didn't stay for the applause. He just walked past Blake, paused only to say, "Strength isn't loud," and kept walking. Blake didn't respond. He had no breath left. No words either. Blake sat slumped on the edge of the workout zone, shirt soaked, breath rasping, forehead buried in his forearm. His chest heaved as if he had just gone 12 rounds with a pro fighter, and in some ways, he had. Not physically. Not with fists. But in pride, stamina, and raw presence, he had been outclassed. His crew stood nearby, silent. No more smirks. No more hype. Kyle looked down at the sand. Nate kept scrolling through the clip they had filmed, not daring to post it anymore. The high they had walked in with had collapsed, now buried under the weight of public shame. Finally, Blake stood. Wobbly. Shoulders heavy. He looked at Jason, who stood near the pull-up bar sipping water, eyes calm as if nothing had happened. "I was wrong," Blake muttered, barely loud enough to be heard over the breeze. "You earned it." Jason didn't blink. He simply stepped forward and handed Blake a fresh bottle of water. "Hydrate," he said. "And next time, train more. Talk less." Blake nodded, swallowing his pride harder than any protein shake. "Yeah," he mumbled. "Fair." There was no audience clapping. No dramatic handshake. Just quiet, respectfully so. But not everyone stayed quiet. The disabled vet leaned on the railing, grinning. "He's real," he shouted, beaming at the crowd. "That's Jason Statham, all right." Quiet storm. That kicked something loose. The crowd erupted. Applause swelled. Whispers turned into shouts. "That's him. He smoked that guy. Dude didn't even flex." Someone pulled up the viral video already live. Over 500K views within the hour. The young lifeguard from earlier, who had been struggling with his form, approached Jason as he picked up his towel. "Sir," he said nervously, "that was the cleanest circuit I've ever seen." Jason gave a quiet nod. "Form before flair," he said. "Always." Then he turned to leave. Blake stood frozen in place, watching the man walk away, not out of shame now, but reflection. Every step Jason took seemed to echo the message deeper. Real strength did not need to roar. It just had to finish what others only pretended to start. Jason passed the disabled vet, gave him a respectful nod, and muttered, "Take care." The vet grinned. "You too, legend." And with that, Jason Statham disappeared down the beach, his silhouette fading against the golden sun. But the moment, Blake's humbling, the crowd's respect, the shift in energy, would live on. Every phone captured it. Every mind remembered it. Because when Jason Statham said, "Strength's quiet," the world finally understood what that truly meant. Discipline crushed ego that day on the sand. Jason Statham did not flex, brag, or raise his voice. He simply outperformed, outlasted, and walked away. Blake, once loud and arrogant, stood silent, humbled in front of a crowd that had watched hype dissolve under real mastery. One strength circuit flipped the script, and by the time the clip hit 1 million views, the world had already decided. Real discipline humbles hype. Statham proved it undeniably.